Greetings and welcome to my podcast. My name is Peter Doherty. I'm a Catholic priest and a psychologist who integrates both psychology and scripture studies to further understand the Gospels and seek out practical and deeper teachings of the readings. Today we are focusing on Matthew chapter 25, verse 14 to 30. This Gospel will be read in Catholic churches on November 19th, 2023. In Matthew's Gospel, Jesus tells the story of a man going on a journey and entrusting his property to the care of his servants. He lends 5 talents to one servant, another 2 talents, and finally 1 talent to a third servant. There is a variation of the story in Luke chapter 19, verse 11 to 26. The obvious interpretation to this parable is to make use of the talents that God gives us. They are meant to bring about positive results in our lives, not to be buried or denied. There are a few additional points I would like to make as I want to highlight the key issues here. The first point I want to draw your attention to is the difference in the distribution of the amounts of talents. There's no attempt here to be equal. I'm reminded of the parable of the workers, Matthew chapter 20, verse 1 to 16. In the vineyard, where all the workers are paid the same, regardless of the fact that some worked 1 hour, while others had worked the whole day. Clearly, God's sense of fairness and generosity is different from ours. There are other examples in Scripture where people are treated differently. I suspect the message here is not how much we do, but that we respond to God's invitation, and that is our motivation to respond to God's invitation. The second point focuses on the servant, who only got 1 talent and buried it instead of investing in it. When asked to explain his actions, he describes his fear of his master. Apparently, he had good reason, as the master himself agrees with him. I'm left with the observation that fear shut this man down. He chose inaction because of fear. The other 2 servants were able to overcome their fear, or not allow it to paralyze them. They were successful. They were proactive. In both cases, they went out and made more with what the master had given them. They didn't wait for opportunities to come along their way. They actively went out to create those opportunities. There is no indication that we should be reckless, but to develop a willingness to learn, to explore, and ready to follow our dreams. I know this will be a subject of another podcast, but I'm interested in doing a podcast of where we follow our dreams and respond to our Christian calling. But I'll leave that for another day. Today I'm wondering how fear plays a part in our behavior and even in our sin life. Fear can lead people to do actions they would not normally do, or refrain from actions they know they should be involved in. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that we have to get rid of our fears. Fear in a life-threatening situation can be adaptive and lead us to take actions that need to be done to protect ourselves. I don't think being courageous means one doesn't have fear either. They're able to move forward even with their fear. In class, I often teach or ask my students, how much danger is there in this world? I get them to rate their fear from 1 to 10, with 10 being the most fearful. The range is usually between 2 and 8. With that information, I ask students if they are comfortable traveling or being out at night or being in risky situations. I've noticed that often the higher the number on their fear scale, the less likely they are going to do other active activities. My point is to illustrate to the students that the more fear they have in their perspective of life, the less willing they are to take chances. It becomes more and more clear to me that the more fear there is in our lives, the less willing we are to try anything different, to grow, and to develop. Also, it has become clear that much of our sin life has its roots in fear. Fear can creep into our lives when we're not even aware of its impact. I see fear in people who are scrupulous, who are so afraid that they might forget something in their confession, that they don't allow themselves to experience or believe in God's forgiveness. I see people who believe that they must be punished for their sins to win God's love and forgiveness. It's become clear that feelings of jealousy, narcissism, and stinginess are often fear-based. And often people lash out when they are hurting because of their fears. Fear can control behavior, but it doesn't lead to conversion. How many parents have punished their child for misbehavior? They were too young to understand, so the punishment is designed to reduce inappropriate behavior. As the child grows older, more effort is made to have the child understand why a particular behavior is prohibited and not accepted. It appears to me that people are taught to behave out of fear of hell or the wrath of God, and less about the love of God. Initially, it works. People behave, but as they mature, this model starts to fall apart. You cannot force someone to love or threaten them with dire consequences if they don't love God. And what I've noticed is we don't have an adult model of loving God, or at least it needs some development. So many of the prayers we recite evoke fear rather than conversion. One exception I found is the act of contrition, where it reads, "My God, I am sorry for my sins with all my heart. In choosing to do wrong and failing to do good, I have sinned against you, whom I should love above all things." I like this prayer because it's clear that loving God should be the motive of our life, not fear of the fires of hell. Ironically, some people are drawn to the excitement that comes with fear. Activities like bungee jumping or watching horror movies. Ironically, they feel more alive by doing risky activities. I have a hunch, though, they are minimizing the risk to enjoy the activity. When you are examining your sin life, I encourage you to spend some time looking to see how much your actions have their roots in fear. You may find yourself being surprised at how much fear interacts in your daily decisions. Address yourself. Do you find yourself believing in yourself? Do you give up or not attempt something because you have given up prematurely? Do you fear or does fear play a role in your weakness? Does fear play a role in how you treat people? Look back on events where you acted badly. Did fear play a role? We hear about people being imprisoned because of sin. And I refer you to John chapter 8, verse 34, where it reads, "Truly I say to you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin." I wonder if the jailer is fear. How does fear prevent us from activating more of our potential? Pray for the gift of discernment so that you can know God's will in your life. Having a sense that what you are doing is God's will help you become less afraid. Pray for strength and remember the times when you felt strong. Pray for the gift of insight so you can prepare for issues before you have to deal with them. Pay attention to what you fear. Is there evidence of danger, or are those fears baseless? In this case, I'm focusing on our fear of God, but you can use the suggestion dealing with any fears that you may have. I urge you to reflect on your image of God. What is the source of your understanding of who God is? It may be time to update your vision and image of God. Thank you for listening. If this is your first time you have heard my podcast and you are interested in hearing more, I urge you to listen to my first podcast or outline my approach. I also invite you to contact me by email at peter.doherty, O-M-I, that's Doherty, Doherty, O-M-I, at gmail.com. If you have any suggestions, concerns, please do not hesitate to let me know. And any ways that I can make this podcast more effective, again, let me know. I appreciate the feedback. Take care, God bless, and I wish you the best in this coming week.